Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors the elders and apostles, a great millstone who are teaching us truth and sincerity, and a shout out to Yakim and Yakwath. Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Brakat them. So, take a look at the headlines here, and, well, you can't help but see Donald Trump, who is now, pretty much, if you watch the Dog and Pony Show, well, I didn't waste my time watching the Dog and Pony Show, seeing that I already knew that he would be acquitted of the so-called impeachment trials. Wasted time, distraction news, to take our eyes off of Syria and Iran. But here's what he's already come out there and saying. Trump says war with Iran was closer than you thought last month. And of course, you know, like everything else, though, he's telling the people, though, that yes, pretty soon they will actually be attacking Iran. During a 2-hour lunch at the White House and then later at the State of the Union speech, President Trump played up the idea of a war against Iran, presenting a conflict as all but a foregone conclusion and suggesting it just depends which road they choose. So in other words, he's letting you know that there's a future war with Iran involved, which is World War III. During his lunch, Trump told reporters that the war against Iran was closer than you thought. The White House declined to comment on this, insisting the lunch was off the record and that it was unethical for the reporters to ask about it. Trump talked further at the State of the Union, cheering proud Iranians, raising their voices against unresponsive rulers, and crediting his sanctions for Iran's economy doing very poorly. Trump demanded Iran give up its pursuit of nuclear weapons despite consistent evidence showing Iran is not seeking such weapons in the first place, and suggested Iran's leaders are too proud or too foolish to accept U.S. demands. Well, you know, this is economic terrorism. And you know that this is a full-blown war. Trump once again appeared to blatantly suggest that whether Iran accepts the demands, adding, let's see which road they choose, it is totally up to them. This is much more ominous, combined with warnings about the war during his lunch. While Trump's other State of the Union topics for the Middle East focused on the ISIS war being over, which you and I both know that they're still arming terrorist groups in the Idlib province, and America has stolen the oil from Syria. And the Afghan war potentially ending, on Iran, he appeared to be taking up further escalation, while crediting himself for the killing of Iran's General Qasem Soleimani. You see how he's bragging about it? Adding to the narrative surrounding launching such a war. So, he's ready to go to war, and so you know as well as I do that the mark of the beast will be mandatory very shortly here. And here's Gomer and all his bands. Turkey gives Assad deadline to pull back or face military action. Yeah, because they're losing the Idlib province. Turkey has given the Syrian government until the end of this month to withdraw from recently seized territory in Idlib province. Who the fuck are they to say that Syrian Arab army has no right to be in Syria? You know, who the fuck is Gomer? Amalek. Where several Turkish observation stations are besieged or face military action. I expressed the need for the regime forces to fall back to Sochi deal borders in my phone call to Russian President Vladimir Putin last night. Erdogan said in an address to his party's group meeting on Wednesday. We hope that they will complete retreating behind our stations in February. If they don't, we will be forced to do it ourselves. So you know that a further escalation of this war will happen. Erdogan's remarks came after Syrian government forces shelling killed 8 Turkish soldiers on Sunday near the strategic town of Sarıkamış, where Turkey has been deploying tanks, armored vehicles, rocket launchers, and commandos to stop the offensive. The town sits on the M4 and M5 highways, and taking it would expose Idlib city, the opposition's last major stronghold, which would be in artillery range. So, either way, though, they will be going to direct war very shortly here. So you can see the blue areas where Turkey actually controls. So you see all those blue dots there. That's the areas that Turkey controls, because of course, Turkey has their interest in Syria, but I always thought that Turkey was another country. You see what I'm saying? Foreign entities in Syria, so it was never a civil war. These are foreign entities in Syria, exactly the way Bashar al-Assad has said. Forces loyal to Bashar al-Assad, backed up by the Russian military, have made rapid gains in recent weeks as they took to prize northwestern Idlib province from rebel hands. The UN estimates more than 500,000 people have been displaced toward the Turkish border since fighting intensified in December. On Monday, the Turkish military retaliated for the deadly shelling by pummeling Syrian government positions. Ankara claimed it had neutralized more than 70 Syrian soldiers based on radio communications it had intercepted. Erdogan said on Wednesday that the deadly attack on Turkish forces was a turning point for Ankara and Syria, as the regime responds to the smallest ceasefire violations with heavy attacks that also target civilians, and from now on we will retaliate to the regime violations in the same way. But these are not civilian targets. What they are is terrorists who are not letting the civilians go, not letting the civilians leave these cities, but rather enslaving them. Any air or ground attack on our military or elements aligned with the U.S., with us, regardless of the identity of the source and without warning, will be reprised. So you see what's happening. Turkish and air-ground units will freely operate in all Idlib and conduct operations if needed, he added. So pretty much they're saying that this is our territory. They're telling Syria that, I'm sorry, this is no longer Syria, this belongs to Turkey. That's pretty much what it is. Despite Erdogan's warnings, local reports indicated that Assad's forces on Wednesday continued to seize more territory to the east of Sarkab. It's kind of funny, though. Seize? You mean take back. Take back that of which belongs to Syria. No, Assad, they're trying to make it sound like Assad invaded Turkey and went in and started taking places. That's not what's happening there. You see how these devils work? One former Turkish official who follows the situation on the ground was pessimistic. I really don't understand the February deadline, he told Middle East Eye. They are closing in on Idlib city. They don't attack Turkish positions, but rather move around them and still make progress toward the north to the border. Assad's forces will be on the Turkish border before the end of February. They should act now. Others believe Turkey gave more than 20 days to Damascus to open up space for negotiations with Russia. It has to do with Turkish military logistics and deployment. Ankara will reinforce the region. Omar Uzakak, an expert on Syrian affairs at Ankara-based think tank SETA, told MEE, there should be a certain line, if crossed, that Turkey will be forced to stop directly. So, either way, though, you're going to see more and more conflict here as World War III is breaking out. And Trump saying proudly that, that they were that close to war, meaning that he plans a total war, because it says it depends on how they behave. And of course, you know how these politicians, aka the King of Babylon, and Babylon itself, always lie to you about how the economy is doing great under this leader or whatever, when it really isn't. Payroll revisions wipe out 520,000 job gains under Trump. As we pointed out overnight, the big story in today's job report would not be the January payrolls increase, which we observed earlier was impressive, surging by 225,000, well above the 165,000 census forecast, but the historical revisions to payrolls data, which would be reduced by as much as 500,000 jobs as a result of the BLS recalibration of its business birth death adjustment. So, again, only the rich are going to survive this thing. And, it's, again, phony money. Sure enough, the reason why the market is in a risk-off mood and why yields are tumbling again is because, as expected, the payrolls revisions did indeed wipe out as 520,000 jobs in 2018 as of April 2019, and the delta in December was a sizable negative 422,000, with 152.383 million pre-revision jobs contrasted to the 156.961 million post-revision. So you can see, though, that what's happened is, those that get to stay, subtract the 500,000 that just lost their jobs. This looks nice. You see how every so-called blessing is really a curse to you Edomites, to those that joined unto Babylon. It is falling. The chart below shows the change in monthly payrolls pre and post benchmark revision, and there are two things to note. The bulk of the downward revisions took place during 2018, which means the Fed launching its tightening cycle and was hiking rates based on false payrolls information, even as yields were sliding, with the bond market sniffing out the underlying misreported payrolls weakness. And two, the February 2019 payroll gain was revised to just 1,000 from 56,000, but it was a positive 1,000, as a negative number would have broken the string of 112 consecutive positive monthly increase in payrolls. So, America is definitely not booming. Jobs are not doing very good unless you are a part of the 1%, which is just phony money anyways. It's just a phony hegemony. So you can see the system is failing. The best way to visualize a substantial revision lower to payrolls in the year-to-year jobs growth chart, which shows that instead of rising as much as 1.9% in late 2019, when the Fed was already set to reserve its monetary policy to dovish, jobs were in fact growing at a far slower pace annually. And after a tumultuous 2018 and 2019, the pre and post series have now converged to roughly 1.4% annual growth. So you just see everything plummeting, as they're going to tell you the economy is doing great under Trump. Well, as well as I do, though, that there is no such thing as voting. In fact, they're just selected. They're just giving you the illusion that you voted. We, the elect, are not fooled by these things, because we know, though, that they have who they want in there, and we believe he's the guy. So here's what's going on. Of course, Amalek, Israeli state, attacked Syria in the last couple of days. Syrian air defenses intercept Israeli aggression. So pretty much, though, I think that there's a video here, so we can take a look at this. And for the most part, these S-300s and S-200 systems repel most of these attacks. So, Israeli state is losing, pretty much. So they, of course, want the United States to come in there. And you and I both know, though, that the last time the United States was quite embarrassed in their so-called smart missiles. And I remember Vladimir Putin saying if they were smart, they would hit terrorist positions. More on this from Press TV. Israel used civilian flight as shield to raid Damascus after Syrian troops liberate Syracuse. So this was last night, this Israeli strike. An Israeli airstrike carried out as Syrian troops were liberating the terrorist-held town of Syracuse in the northwestern Idlib province has endangered a civilian flight carrying 172 passengers, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Defense Ministry spokesman Major General Igor Konashev said Friday the civil Airbus 320 was headed to Damascus from the Iranian capital early Thursday when it was forced to divert its route as the Syrian's capital air defenses were intercepting Israeli missiles. The plane made an emergency landing in Hammam Air Base in Syria's western coastal province of Latakia. Only due to timely actions in the Damascus airport, dispatchers, and the efficient operation of the automated air traffic control system, the Airbus 320 managed to successfully land at the closest alternative airfield. So, either way, though, Amalek, man, they don't give you no warning. They just attack. Well, they're trying to provocate, doctor up stuff with these white helmets. Well, Gomer and all his bands are trying to help as well to get involved. So you know as well as I do that they're going to provocate a false flag chemical attack as well as everything else. The spokesman stressed that Israel was well aware of the civilian flights around Damascus and that such missions demonstrated the regime's reckless disregard for human lives. The Israelis' general staff use passenger jets as a cover for its military operations or as a shield from Syrian missile system fire is becoming a typical trait of the Israeli Air Force, he said. Russia had previously warned that Israeli airstrikes against Damascus were endangering civilian jets. Lebanese officials have also stated the Israeli jets illegally conducting operations against Syria from the country's airspace pose a danger to civilian aircraft in Lebanon. A little bit of history. In 2018, Syrian air defenses mistakenly shot down a Russian Il-20 reconnaissance plane after it was similarly used as a cover by Israeli warplanes, killing 15 people abroad. And, of course, like I said before, because Syria is making gains and controls now, Amalek's attacking, which they're going to be attacking not just from the Israeli state, but from Gomer also. So, here's this one as well. White helmets attack Syrian militants preparing false flag chemical attacks in Syria's Idlib, Russia warns. And this came out on February 4. I'm just rereading it. Russia has warned that members of the so-called civil defense group, White Helmets, together with Takfiri terrorists, are planning to carry out a chemical attack in the de-escalation zone of embattled Idlib province in northwestern Syria in a bid to incriminate the Syrian government forces as a pretext for possible acts of aggression on army troops. So you see what this is all leading to. And there's more. Turkish forces build military base in Syria's Idlib as government forces advance. So they're building an actual base, Turkey military forces have reportedly constructed a base in Syria's embattled northwestern province of Idlib, and a Turkish army convoy consisting of dozens of military vehicles, troop carriers, tanks, and soldiers have arrived at the installation. Arab 21 online newspaper citing local sources reported that the base has been constructed at Tal Fanaz Air Base, which lies 2.7 kilometers south of the northwestern Syrian town of Tal Fataz. Foreign-sponsored Takfiri terrorists took control of the site in early 2013. Media activist Mahmoud Tahu said Turkish forces had spread throughout the airport since Wednesday morning. He added that Turkish troops intend to block the way for the Syrian government forces and their allied fighters from popular defense groups to gain control of the base. The report comes as Turkey's official state agency reported on Friday that Ankara has sent nearly 150 vehicles with commandos and ammunition to reinforce its observation posts, which are really to arm the terrorist groups, in Syria's Idlib. Meanwhile, Syrian government forces on Thursday entered Sarbosh city in Idlib province in the latest push to capture the last militant stronghold. So, either way, though, you can see, though, that they don't want to lose what is they think they have, even though they've been moving a lot of their forces into Libya as well. 2 top Sardis commanders killed in 24 hours in Iraq. So, Mossad operations are still continuing in Iraq. 2 commanders of the Iraqi cleric Mustafa al-Sadr movement have been killed in separate attacks in the span of the 24 hours in what appears to be a plot to create division among Iraqi groups. One of them was Hazan al-Hifi, a commander of the Sadr al-Salam militant group who was killed on Thursday when the vehicle carrying him was targeted by an unidentified gunman on the Muhammad al-Qassam road west of Basra province. Yeah, Mossad operation. He suffered fatal injuries and died on the spot, local security forces sources said. They quoted a Sadr movement media official in Basra, Saad al-Maklaki, as saying that Hafi was one of the leaders of the Peace Corps. His assassination came less than 24 hours after Abu Makapi al-Arjawi, another top commander of the Sharia group, was seriously wounded on Tuesday night after unknown assailants riding motorcycles opened fire on him near his house in Abu Rahami district in Masyan Governorate. He later died of the injuries in hospital, Iraqi media reported. There are speculations that the assassinations were carried out by foreign intelligence services, i.e. Israeli secret intelligence services, ISIS, with the aim of pinning the blame on rival Iraqi groups and reignite a civil war in the Israelite country. Yeah, exactly. Iraq's Sadr was ready to work with Rashid al-Shabi to end U.S. presence. You see, that's the bigger thing. So they carried out assassinations because, of course, they want the U.S. out. Associate leader Qassam Qazi has said the U.S. has plotted to assassinate Muqal al-Sadr and pin the blame on Asadi al-Hayat group in a bid to provoke a civil war in Iraq. The first American-Israeli project in Iraq. You see that? American-Israeli project in Iraq. Which they wanted to implement was to assassinate Mustafa al-Sadr and then accuse Asabi of killing him, causing a nationwide slaughter in the country. Qazi said in an interview with Al-Ahad. It seems that their plot is failing as it's being pointed out what their plot was. Sadr and Iran received the intelligence and the issue was sorted out. Thank God the plot was failed, he noted, saying the source of the intelligence was top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, who was assassinated in a drone attack last month. You see, everybody knows who's carrying out the assassinations. Their cover's been blown, man. They can't pin this on any other groups, because everybody knows that it's Mossad Israeli secret intelligence services that are doing this. And there's more. Turkey reinforces outposts in Syria's Idlib. Turkey has sent nearly 150 vehicles with commandos and ammunition to bolster its observation outposts in Idlib, where an intensified offensive is underway by the Syrian Arab Army forces against the foreign-backed militant outfits. Again, this is kind of reiterating what I read earlier. Press TV has been known to do this, to reiterate stories, to back them, So, Turkish security source said that they were only to reinforce the 12 existing posts established under a 2018 deal with Russia. Turkish state news agency Anadolu reported Friday. Under the deal between Ankara, Moscow, and Tehran aimed at reducing violence, Turkey agreed to set up a dozen observation posts in Idlib and neighboring provinces. Despite Ankara's commitment under the agreement, a number of Russian troops were recently killed during attacks launched by militants from Turkey's de-escalation zone in Idlib, so it sounded like the deal's been breached. That's what's really going on. But you see, everybody else over here was distracted by the so-called impeachment trials, which were nothing more than a circus. You see, politics is also part of the bread and circuses. So, like everything else, though, just brings me over to here. Make no mistake about it, we are in these times, and, like everything else, though, it's kind of funny how Trump, last month said that we must reject these prophets of doom, even though all we're doing is reading out of the Bible, and we're taking events that's going on, and we're just telling you the truth, that he's the king of Babylon, and that he'd be the guy to start World War III. This is the very thing that he wants to reject, because he doesn't want anybody to know his true image. They want you to think that the economy's doing great, and that everything's booming, and that they're really sticking it to Iran, and in all these places, and that America's invincible. But that's not what's happening. No, he's leading America with his proud boastfulness. That's the only thing that's actually true that he actually says, is that his arrogancy and proudness is leading America to World War III. And this is the very thing that he says that we must reject. So, brings me right here to 2 Ezra chapter 9. He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I had told thee before, then thou shalt understand that it is the very time wherein the Highest will begin to visit the world in which he made. So, Most High's been visiting this place because you've been seeing it. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and we're seeing that, everywhere. You have the Kentucky gun pro-gun rallies, as well as the Virginia pro-gun rallies. In fact, in Virginia, they are actually taking away the guns from the people. Then, therefore, there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. Then shalt thou understand that the Most High spoke of these things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For it is like all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. And we're seeing the end of Esau's kingdom, and we're seeing the house of David built up. We're seeing New Jerusalem spiritually coming down. Because we believe, though, that the elect are sealed, and that's why all these prophecies are coming. I mean, Apostle Tahar has told us on numerous occasions that the elect must be sealed, because look at all the prophecies that are coming to pass. And yet look at how far into Jacob's trouble we actually are now. We're all being tested, and we're all starting to see bigger and bigger, as you would say, chastisements happen. Even so, also of the Highest have plain beginnings and wonders and powerful works, and endings and effects and signs. And we're seeing the signs everywhere. We're seeing this hegemony collapse. Even Macy's now, is talking about shutting down 120 stores in the nation, And everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby you have believed. So again, this does have everything to do about your faith and your works. You show your faith by going out and doing the work, by coming forth and proclaiming this. And so, again, we know that this is talking about Babylon and just everything that be in place. Shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. And that's talking about those are with Yahushua in the very beginning, because now you're going to see them, because before it becomes a place where people rising, So the house of David is pretty much being built, and, the only thing that you can see now is the prophecies coming. Because we've been shouting this for a while. We're almost done. That's another thing. We're almost done, because you're seeing channels come down. Channels that have been there for a long time have come down. What is the 666 mark? Channel that's been there for a long time is gone. We're on alternative channels such as Daily Motion, because we know YouTube is just about up. So everything's falling into place. Then shall there be in pitiful case which now have abused my ways, and they have cast them away despitefully, shall dwell in torments. Yeah, because here it is. They had a chance to repent. We've called it out on the street, but for such as in their life have received benefits and have not known me. And they have loathed my law where they have yet liberty. And when as yet place of repentance was open unto them, understood not, but despised it. And you see that all the time, you know. So I hope all this has been edifying. Like everything else, though, you know, we know that the mark will soon be made mandatory, as we're seeing all the other prophecies rolled together. We're going to see more push for the mark, the RFID implant. And like everything else, though, until that happens, we're going to still go out there and we're still going to teach. And, you know, pretty much we're just edifying each other because we are already in those evil times of Jacob's trouble. For that, I want to say, Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Kadash, Wa Abba Babal. And it's just going to get a lot worse, you know. So we have to keep on enduring. Shalom.